Hey, good evening. Good evening. I'm so glad that you are with me tonight. Go ahead and if you are jumping on live, say hi in the chat. If you are on Facebook, I will be able to see your comments because I'm pulling up here to make sure I'm streaming where I'm supposed to be. There we go. Gotta turn myself down. All right. Wherever you are watching, if you're watching live or the replay, go ahead and let me know. Tell me where you're watching from. And we are going to talk about a subject tonight that I think is it's going to be something that you can relate to. I know I can relate to it. And that's all about how to get over this problem that we have getting started. How do we get over the problem of just getting started doing the thing, right? That's what we're going to talk about. So I would love to know if you can see and hear me okay. Um, and so if you could just let me know wherever you're watching from, say something in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the Facebook, one of my Facebook groups. I've got a paid membership and another one. So we got LaDonna. Hi, LaDonna. Glad to have you. Um, Anybody who's watching the replay, if you could just say replay, let me know that. That would be awesome. But we're really going to go ahead and just dive right in. So when people are jumping on, I hope that you will introduce yourself. But we're going to talk about why we have so much trouble getting started on tasks and what to do about it. Um, yeah, just let me know. I hope it's not just LaDonna. We love you, LaDonna, but we want you to have some friends here. So if you are watching live or in the replay, let me know that. Um, but many times, the hardest part of completing something is just getting started on it, right? How many of you have trouble getting started? If just let me know in the chat. Just say me in the chat. Wherever you're watching from, um, let me know, and I'll go back and look at those replay people as well. Because usually, once you get started, it's easier than you think it's going to be to continue working. It's just that getting started is so difficult. And since initiating can feel really hard for the ADHD brain, I have ADHD, so um, this will be applicable even if you don't have ADHD. But those of us who do have it, a lot of times we procrastinate. So it's not just you. Task initiation is harder when you have ADHD because tasks take more energy to get started. And because you're used to doing things at the last minute, right? Yeah, I know you. You might have convinced yourself that that's how you operate best. I hear that all the time. It's become a habit, it's your MO. And this is true even if the task is something that's important to you. You may find that you cannot get yourself started until the point where you see that task as an emergency. Anybody relate to that? Um, Anybody like, where are my last minute people? Always until my meds kick in. Exactly. Um, so, if you're tired of operating that way, maybe that's why you're here. So, I do want to talk a little bit about motivation. When you're motivated, you have the energy to engage in doing what it takes to make a change. It could be getting food when you're hungry or looking for a new job. Motivation is the desire to make a change. And that is coupled with the necessary energy to take that persistent action to make the change. So it's not just thinking about it, but actually having the energy to do it. And um, so you probably want to make the changes in your life. That's probably why you're here. Uh, and what frustrates you, I imagine, is that despite wanting these changes, because it's a new year, we all wanted these changes, you get stuck because you can't seem to persistently create and sustain enough energy to take action. And that can feel super frustrating, right? Task initiation or starting is the effort required to get the ball rolling. And if you have ADHD, that ball at the top of the hill, you're pushing up that hill seems bigger. And we have to put forth more energy, it seems, into pushing the ball to get it going. And the ball is so big that the internal motivation alone doesn't really give us enough energy to start. There's a lot that you hear about neuroscience these days. And I think it's fascinating because, our parents' generation didn't know about it, that you can actually change the neural pathways in your brain. But there's a connection between dopamine in the ADHD brain and motivation. When you don't start on what you say is important to you, and others, you may think you're choosing not to do it. And other people may think that too. I mean, after all, if it was really important to you, you would just power through and get started, right? I mean, it's easy for you to engage in tasks that interest you. But one of the reasons for your inconsistency in starting your important work is that dopamine. There's insufficient dopamine released in the executive function networks in your ADHD brain. So your brain basically is just not stimulated enough. So you don't start. If you're interested in doing something because of a perceived reward, maybe, or maybe avoiding something negative, then dopamine is released. But that's not voluntary, though. Telling yourself that you should do something, trying to force yourself usually doesn't work, does it? In fact, you likely feel more resistance when you try to force yourself. But when you wait until the last minute and there's that impending consequence, like getting in trouble at work, then you might get really interested super fast in doing the task because dopamine's released and your brain gets the stimulation it needs. That's why urgency works. Um, so it involves emotions, even unconscious ones impact your motivation to start. And besides dopamine, the other thing that gets in the way of starting is the emotions that are attached to the task. Um, think about something that you're putting off doing right now. Maybe you can write it in the chat if you want to. But when we get off this call, go ahead and write down the thing you're putting off, and then write down all the thoughts that come to mind when you think about that task. What did you notice about the negative thoughts that were associated with the task? So those thoughts are bringing up emotions. Thoughts are and emotions are connected, and those emotions are contributing to your challenges in getting started. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're looking at emails and you see one that you sent a week ago, and you can't believe, um, or it was sent to you, excuse me, a week ago, and you just can't believe that you haven't responded yet. You meant to. You tell yourself you're going to reply today. Okay. I need to reply to her today. I should have done it a long time ago. After all, she's so good about replying to you right away. Then you get stuck trying to come up with a response. You were supposed to send her something last week and you didn't, and you're still not done with it. So you don't want to give an update yet. And you don't want her to know that you forgot to do your part. So you start down this shame spiral and you can't think of what to write in the email. And then so you wonder if the lady you need to write to, maybe she regrets ever asking you for help. So you start to go down that path. So you decide to wait on the email because you're late for a meeting anyway. Do you see where I'm going with this? As you can see, emotions can get in the way of starting something, even things that seem really straightforward and simple. Um, One of the things that I try to teach in my coaching program is that motivation, like waiting for motivation to just descend upon you doesn't work. It's not a good strategy. When you say you'll do something later, do you really mean it? I mean, you know, you don't decide when you'll do it. You just decide, that you're not going to do it in a moment. I'll do it later, but you don't schedule it. You know, promising that you'll do something later minimizes the discomfort of putting it off. I mean, you didn't decide not to write the email. You just intend to do it later. So if something's important, you don't tell yourself that you're not going to do it. You just promise yourself that you're going to do it later. Do you see the difference there? So here's the deal. When procrastinating, even if it's unconscious, there's often this underlying belief that you're going to feel like doing it later. Otherwise, you'd just do it now if you thought you'd feel the same. So you think that something is going to magically change and make you feel like doing it. But you don't know when that's going to happen or what's going to change, you know? And so when you think about what you're putting off doing, when are you going to do it? If you can't answer, it's probably because you don't want to do it. The task is uncomfortable to do now, and it's not going to get any easier in the future. So what do you see where I'm going with this? Waiting for motivation, it just doesn't work. It's even more of a slippery slope when you feel shame attached to it, because your self-esteem takes a beating, and then you feel even less motivated to tackle the task. So you either avoid doing it or you wait until there's some external pressure or sense of urgency that forces you to do it. So a lot of people, like I said, wait till the last minute to get that dopamine kick. But overly relying on that external pressure, it has a cost. Um, when you're confronted with a challenge of getting started, you may have developed this habit, relying on urgency for motivation, because your work gets done eventually. You may even believe that's how you work best. I hear people say that all the time. I work better under pressure. But while the work gets done, relying on the pressure of deadlines, it comes with a cost. So let's be honest, urgency is not really working for you. The cost can include overwhelm, lack of sleep, poor health, family problems, mediocre work, making mistakes, not completing work when the pressure gets too great. So if you overly rely on urgency, it creates a lot of negative feelings. It can leave you feeling guilty and ashamed, anxious, overwhelmed. So you may expect yourself to create enough internal pressure on your own to get started. And you think that that's what I'm a big girl. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? Or a big man or whatever. But you'll need to remember that it's going to be a challenge when you can't create the interest that you need to get your brain fired up, or maybe your emotions get in the way. And what if there's no deadline? How do you get motivated then? And what if the consequences really aren't scary enough to kick you into action? So then that extra sense of urgency that you need isn't around. So it makes sense that we feel anxious, because just below the surface of urgency lies this fear, this anxiety over the potential negative consequences. And when the urgency isn't enough, it's not urgent enough, the negative emotions kick in: guilt, shame, anger. That all comes in and fills the gap. So let me know. I can't read all of the chats, but I'm gonna look at the Facebook one, and let me know what you guys are thinking. Anybody relate to any of this? Hey, Carly, good to see you. Hey, Carol, so glad you could join. Hey, Kathleen. I'm sure there are lots of others watching different places, and some of you will watch the replay. But wherever you can, if you're able to type in the chat, then let me know if you can relate to it, what I'm saying. So I'm going to give you just a couple of workarounds. One is it's called goal chaining, and like linking them together. It's a lot easier to get going, when you set the bar lower. So set small, achievable goals and then chain them together, one after the other. Why does that work? Because it's easier to deal with emotions like disinterest or boredom if you tell yourself that you're only going to have to put up with it for a very limited amount of time. And secondly, every time you achieve one of your small goals, your brain rewards you with a pleasant hit of dopamine because ding, you hit a goal. And not only does dopamine feel great, it actually is a neurochemical that's most responsible for motivation. So when you do something when you're not motivated, chemicals kick in that make you motivated. You can create your own motivation by just taking action when you don't feel like it. It makes it a lot easier to keep going. And, an added bonus is that dopamine actually regulates our motor movements physically. So it makes it easier to do anything. And it improves attention. So the little micro goals in the goal chaining process, they can be really simple little steps. Um, limit the scope of the task. That's one strategy that you can use. So um, in this version, you decide to work for a limited amount of time, like the Pomodoro method, or you decide to do a limited number of actions. So, for example, you say, I'm going to work on this task for an honest 5 minutes or whatever suitable amount of time. And that means eliminating distractions, bring your thoughts and attentions on the task, and set a timer. And at the end of 5 minutes or 25 minutes or whatever, you can choose. You can continue completing the task, or you can choose to quit without any shame. But by that time, I think 5 minutes probably not long enough. By that time, especially 25 minutes, dopamine will have been released, and then you may be cruising on autopilot. Or you could limit it to a certain number of actions. Let's say you need to clear a room. Commit to putting away 3 items or 10 items or whatever. And after that's completed, then you can choose. You could do another 3 items, or you can choose to stop. Do you see what I mean? So that's strategy is called limiting. And another one is if X, then Y. I know it sounds like an algebra problem. It's not. For example, let's say that you're writing a report, or you need to write a blog post or something, and you say to yourself, if I sit in this chair, then I can turn on the computer. Because you're sure you can sit in the chair. And you're also sure that you can turn on the computer or open your laptop or whatever. You have the skills to do those two things. So you don't have any worries about doing them. And you can camp out on that certainty for a while, right? Feel the power of being able to handle that. I can sit in this chair. And knowing that you can do something helps generate that serotonin, the feel good chemical. And that helps you get going. And you can hack your brain chemistry that way, kind of make it work for you. So let's keep going. If you can turn on the computer, you can open the document, right? And if you can open this sounds like have you ever heard of the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie? One thing leads to another. So if you can open the document, then you can read what you wrote last time. If you can read what you wrote last time, then you can write one new sentence. Do you get the picture? You don't have to do this for every tiny step forever. You just need to get yourself going, get yourself started. You just keep yourself going until you're so involved in it that then the natural rhythm of the activity just takes over. The key is to remember that you're focusing on just the next step, not the big outcome. So put your blinders on. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't think about the whole task. Think about only one step at a time. And that it cuts down on that uncomfortable task to the point where it's not so overwhelming. And you also realize that you can stop at any time. Um, and so you feel in control, you know? You have the power of brain chemistry behind you, um, as you accomplish each easy step. And you can add more energy, more interest. If something's boring, uh, being interested in something is one of the most powerful motivators for getting started. So try to find interesting parts of something that's boring. For example, I love colors and art. And so adding color to boring things makes it easier for me. um, you can add novelty, just like interest, something that's new. Um, that's really attractive to the ADHD brain. Um, Maybe things that we've never done before or tasks that lead us to a new adventure. That can be especially motivating. And so you regularly changing the types of tasks you're working on or trying to solve old problems in a new way. That helps getting started, helps to just be a little bit easier. Make it a challenge. We need to use that creative problem solving to build interest or novelty into the to-do list, right? So make it like a game. For example, set a timer for 20 minutes and raise the clock to see how much you can get done. And after the timer rings, you take a break and then reset it, try to beat your score. Make it a game. Uh, Provide a reward. If I can beat my score, I get, you know, I don't know, special vanilla creamer in my coffee or something. But stimulation is such a motivator for us. For people with ADHD, there's a strong connection between stimulation and energy levels. So that means that if you provide sensation or stimulation, you can gain more energy and you can layer different sensations on top of what you're already doing. So the key here is not to add sensations that'll just distract your brain, like your favorite song where you're going to want to sing along to it, but maybe instrumental music where you aren't going to sing lyrics. So you can use this momentum. Once you get started, you use a momentum that you got one thing done, kind of use that momentum to push yourself into action, into a new one. Start with something really small that doesn't take a ton of energy to start, and then move to progressively larger tasks, kind of pick up speed. Um, you'll lose a little energy moving from one task to another, but if they're similar, it won't be that bad. So, like moving from one writing task to a different one is easier than going from writing to accounting. You know, um, Break things down into smaller tasks. Like, okay, you have to write something. Maybe you do an outline first or a mind map. And I mean, I know you hear neurotypical saying this and it's irritating, but there is some truth to it. Breaking things down into small pieces um, really does help because you add our weakened memory to that, and we do the analysis paralysis thing. So just focus on the next step. It's important to just focus on the next step rather than everything, just the next step. And that keeps you from getting lost in the details because you can go off on a rabbit trail. Maybe you even hide the big list and you just have the little steps in front of you. And you can always get help. I'm an ADHD coach for entrepreneurs and professionals that have ADHD or those type of symptoms. Maybe they've never been diagnosed, and I can help you. And you know, um, I have a great coaching program, and if you want to know more about that, reach out, and I'll give you more info on it. I am doing a free live masterclass this Thursday night, and you can register for that. It's on Zoom. It's getmoredonemasterclass.com. Getmoredonemasterclass.com. And so you can sign up for that. And I would love to see all of you on Zoom. Thursday night, it's 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Replays will be available. So reach out if you can. Get some help. If it's not from me, from somebody else. And I will be happy to help you. Let me see. My dog is just like driving me nuts down here. She wants attention. Let me see what you guys are saying. In Indianapolis, yes. Carol's in Texas. And Carly said, definitely relating to this. She's got an exam deadline in a couple of weeks. And she listens to concert band music while studying. Huh. Yeah, Carly, you can just still sign up and get the replay. The replay will be sent to you. So awesome. So if I didn't get to your questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll go ahead. I don't know if it's going to post, but I'll put the link to this webinar. Get More Done Masterclass.com. See if that worked. Boom. I don't know if that worked. Do you guys see the link there? I'll put it in Facebook too. www.getmoredone. I'm a very slow speller. Class.com. Okay, those of you in Facebook, you should have seen that. Hey, Kathy, so glad you could join. We're actually ending up, but you can watch the replay. And if you got questions or comments and you're watching the replay, just please say hi in the chat. Let me know if you've got topics you want me to cover in the future. Let me know. I do have a paid exclusive membership group. It's only $27 a month, and they get a lot more training. So if you are interested in that, let me know, and I'll send the link your way. It's called Focus and Flow. And we just had a book club actually last night. Yeah. And we were talking about the book Soundtracks, which is an awesome book. So we have a lot of fun in there. And anyway, I hope you have a great, I hope this got you started on your week well, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening, and I will see you next time. Bye.